Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I think I didn't do anything wrong, just kissed a few of his friends for fun. Nothing serious, just playful flirting. But a week after our anniversary party, I got served divorce papers and a formal notice about custody. I never thought my little games would end with lawyers, and my whole family split. The house looked perfect for our 10th anniversary party. I'd spent weeks planning every detail. The string lights in the backyard, the playlist that mixed our wedding songs with current hits, the way the appetizers were arranged on my grandmother's serving platters. Everything was designed to remind everyone, especially Elliot, of what a wonderful wife I was. But as guests began arriving at our suburban home, I could already feel Elliot's distance. He moved through the party like a ghost, offering polite smiles and refilling drinks without really engaging. When Harvey Ralston showed up with a bottle of expensive wine and that easy grin of his, I felt a familiar flutter of excitement. "Sophronia, you look absolutely stunning," Harvey said, his eyes lingering just a moment too long on my new red dress. "Elliot's a lucky man." I glanced over at my husband, who was deep in conversation with his brother Jacob about some engineering project. Typical. Even at our anniversary party, he couldn't focus on me. "Well, someone should appreciate the effort," I laughed, touching Harvey's arm. "Elliot's been so distracted lately with work." The party flowed around us, neighbors mingling with college friends, my sister Marcia holding court by the kitchen island, Linda, Elliot's mother, watching everything with those sharp eyes of hers. But I found myself gravitating toward the men who actually noticed me. When Harvey complimented my cooking, I leaned in close to thank him. When another of Elliot's friends mentioned how young I looked, I playfully posed for a selfie. "Mom, what are you doing?" 8-year-old Amelia appeared at my elbow, tugging on my dress as I laughed at something Harvey had whispered. "Just having fun with the grown-ups, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair. "Why don't you go play in your room for a bit?" Linda materialized beside us. "Come on, Amelia. Let's get you some cake in the kitchen." Her voice was crisp, disapproving, and she shot me a look that could freeze water. "Oh, Linda, don't be such a grandmother," I called after her. "It's a party. People should be having fun." As the evening progressed, I felt more and more like the star I deserved to be. Harvey and I ended up on the back deck, sharing stories about our gym routines, while he stood just a little too close. When Marcia suggested we take photos, I was all too happy to pose, especially when Harvey wrapped his arm around my waist. "Kiss on the cheek for the camera," Marcia called out, phone raised. Without thinking, I turned and planted a playful kiss on Harvey's cheek, then another on his other cheek, European style. The camera flashed, capturing my laughter and his surprised but pleased expression. "Sophronia." Elliot's voice cut through the laughter like ice. I spun around, still giggling. "Oh, come on, Elliot. It's just fun. Harvey doesn't mind, do you, Harvey?" Harvey shifted uncomfortably. "It's just a party, man." But Elliot's face had gone completely blank, that expression I'd learned to recognize as his shutdown mode. Without another word, he turned and walked back into the house. "He's so sensitive," I told Harvey and Marcia, rolling my eyes. "You'd think after 10 years he'd know I'm just being friendly." Marcia nodded enthusiastically. "Seriously, Soph, he should be flattered that other men find his wife attractive. That's like marriage goals." Later, as I posted the photos to social media, I made sure to tag everyone, including Elliot. I captioned the album, "Anniversary Fun with the Best Friends Ever." Some people know how to appreciate a good party, winning the attention contest, watch anniversary vibes. When I went looking for Elliot to show him the post, I found Jacob helping him clean up in the kitchen. Both men went quiet when I walked in. "The party was amazing, wasn't it?" I said, showing them my phone. "Look how many likes we're getting already." Jacob glanced at the screen, then at his brother. "I think I should head out. Thanks for having us." After Jacob left, I found Elliot loading the dishwasher with mechanical precision. "You disappeared on me tonight," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Your own anniversary party." "Did I?" he said without looking up. "I hadn't noticed." "Come on, don't be like this. Everyone had a great time. Harvey said it was the best party we've ever thrown." Elliot's hand stilled on the plates. "I'm sure he did. What's that supposed to mean?" But he was already walking toward the stairs. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. I have an early meeting tomorrow." I stood alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of what should have been a perfect evening. Through the window, I could see Harvey's car still in our driveway as he said goodbye to other guests. He caught my eye and waved, that same easy smile on his face. Everything had gone exactly as I'd wanted. So why did I feel like something had shifted, like a foundation had cracked somewhere I couldn't see? 2 weeks later, I was determined to prove that I wasn't going to let Elliot's mood ruin my social life. Marcia had organized a girls' night out at the downtown bar and grill, and I'd spent an hour getting ready, the kind of effort I used to put in when Elliot and I were dating. "You look like you're 25 again," Marcia said as we claimed a high-top table near the bar. "Seriously, Soph, marriage hasn't aged you a day." The compliment felt like sunshine after weeks of Elliot's cold shoulder. He'd been polite, but distant since the party, coming home late from work and spending his evenings in his home office, or helping Amelia with homework. When I tried to bring up what had happened, he just said he was processing things. "I don't know what his problem is," I told Marcia, as we ordered our second round of cocktails. "It's like he wants me to be some boring housewife who never talks to anyone." "That's ridiculous," agreed Jen, one of my co-workers who'd joined us. "You're one of the most fun people I know. If he can't handle that, that's his issue." As the evening progressed, I noticed several of Elliot's friends at the bar, including Harvey, who was shooting pool with a group near the back. When our eyes met, he gave me a hesitant wave. "I'll be right back," I told the girls, sliding off my bar stool. Harvey's expression was cautious as I approached. "Hey, Sophronia, how are you?" "I'm great," I said, perhaps a little too brightly. "Just having a girls' night. You remember my sister Marcia?" I gestured back toward our table, where Marcia was watching with obvious interest. Harvey nodded politely, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Listen," he said quietly, "about the party." "Oh, that," I waved dismissively. "Don't worry about it. Elliot's just going through some kind of midlife crisis or something. He'll get over it." Harvey didn't look convinced. "Maybe we should keep things, more casual when he's around." The suggestion stung. "Harvey, we're friends. We've been friends for years. I'm not going to start acting weird just because my husband is being oversensitive." To prove my point, I moved closer, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "Besides, it's not like we're doing anything wrong. A little harmless flirting never hurt anyone." I let my hand rest on his arm as I spoke, the same gesture I'd used at the party. Harvey glanced around nervously, and I followed his gaze to see several of his friends watching us with uncomfortable expressions. "Sophronia, I think." "You think too much," I interrupted with a laugh. "Come on, live a little. Your wife isn't even here tonight." It was then that I noticed Elliot. He was sitting alone at the far end of the bar, an untouched beer in front of him. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and I felt a jolt of surprise. How long had he been there? Had he seen me talking to Harvey? Instead of feeling guilty, I felt defiant. If he wanted to spy on me, fine. Let him see that other people appreciated his wife's company. I leaned closer to Harvey, whispering something meaningless about the music, very aware that Elliot was watching. When Harvey laughed nervously, I touched his shoulder again, letting my fingers linger. That's when I noticed Elliot had his phone out, seemingly scrolling through messages. But something about the angle made me think he might be taking photos. "Is your husband taking pictures of us?" Harvey asked, following my gaze. I rolled my eyes dramatically. "Probably checking his work emails. He's always on that thing." But doubt crept in as I watched Elliot's careful, deliberate movements. When he finally left the bar 20 minutes later, he didn't acknowledge me at all. "That was weird," Harvey said. "That's just Elliot being Elliot," I replied, but my voice sounded forced even to me. When I got home that night, I found Elliot in the living room, still fully dressed, sitting in his chair with a manila folder on his lap. "Have a good time?" he asked without looking up. "It was fine, just drinks with the girls." I kicked off my heels, trying to read his expression. "I saw you at the bar. You should have come over and said hi." "Should I have?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to ask what was in the folder, why he'd been at the bar, what exactly he thought he'd seen. Instead, I said, "I'm going to bed. Are you coming up?" "In a while." I lay awake for hours, listening for his footsteps on the stairs. They never came. The next morning, Amelia asked why Daddy was sleeping on the couch again. I told her he'd fallen asleep watching TV, but her worried expression suggested she wasn't buying it any more than I was. At work, I found myself defending my marriage to colleagues who'd seen the tension at recent social events. "Every couple goes through rough patches," I insisted to anyone who'd listen. "Elliot's just stressed about work." But privately, I was starting to worry. When I tried to bring up counseling, Elliot just said he was still thinking. When I suggested we plan another party or dinner out, he declined. When I asked directly what was wrong, he said he needed time to figure some things out. "He's being ridiculous," Marcia assured me over lunch. "So you talked to Harvey at a bar. So what? You're allowed to have friends." "Exactly," I agreed. "I'm not going to apologize for being social. That's who I am. He knew that when he married me." But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the image of Elliot sitting alone at that bar, his phone in his hands, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't jealousy, exactly. It was something colder, more calculating, something that made me wonder what exactly he was planning. By the third week, the whispers at work had become impossible to ignore. I'd catch colleagues glancing at me with expressions that ranged from curious to disapproving, and conversations would stop when I entered the break room. "Sophronia, can I see you in my office?" My supervisor, Margaret, appeared at my desk with a carefully neutral expression. I followed her into her cramped office in the municipal building, my stomach knotting with anxiety. "I need to ask you about some concerns that have been brought to my attention," Margaret said, settling behind her desk. "About your conduct at recent social events." "My conduct?" I tried to sound incredulous rather than defensive. "What kind of concerns?" "There have been reports of inappropriate behavior with married men at local establishments. Given that you work in a public-facing position, the city has to be careful about—" "Are you serious?" I interrupted. "Someone's actually complaining because I talk to people at a bar." "This is harassment, Margaret, pure and simple." Margaret's expression remained diplomatically blank. "I'm just asking you to be mindful of appearances. We represent the city and this is unbelievable." I stood up, my chair scraping against the linoleum. "I'm being persecuted for having friends, for being social. I bet if I was some mousy little thing who never left her house, no one would say a word." After leaving Margaret's office, I called Marcia immediately. "They're just jealous," she said, exactly what I needed to hear. "You're young, you're fun, you're not some dried-up old prune like half the women in that office. Of course they're going to try to tear you down." That evening, I tried to talk to Elliot about what had happened, hoping for some support, some indication that we were on the same team. "Work was awful today," I said, as he helped Amelia with her math homework at the kitchen table. "Margaret basically accused me of inappropriate behavior because I was seen talking to Harvey at the bar." Elliot's pen paused over Amelia's worksheet. "What kind of inappropriate behavior?" "Nothing. That's the point. I was just being friendly, and now everyone's acting like I'm some kind of, I don't know, some kind of homewrecker or something." "Mommy, what's a homewrecker?" Amelia asked, looking up from her multiplication problems. "Nothing, sweetheart," I said quickly. Just grown-up drama, people being silly. Like when kids at school say mean things about each other. Amelia's 8-year-old logic cut straight to the heart of it. Exactly like that, I agreed, shooting Elliot a meaningful look. Sometimes adults act just like kids, making up stories and being mean for no reason. But Elliot wasn't looking at me. He was focused entirely on Amelia's homework, his jaw set in that familiar line of tension. Later, after Amelia was in bed, I found him in the guest room, which had apparently become his permanent residence. "We need to talk," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Do we?" He didn't look up from his laptop. "Yes, we do. This whole thing is getting out of hand. People are gossiping about us, about me. It's affecting my job, my reputation. We need to present a united front." Finally, he looked at me. A united front against what? Against people who want to make something out of nothing. Against people who can't stand to see a happy marriage. Is that what we have? A happy marriage? The question caught me off guard. Of course we do. We're just going through a rough patch. Every couple does. Elliot closed his laptop and set it aside. "Sophronia, do you think I'm stupid?" "What kind of question is that?" "Do you think I don't see what's happening? That I don't understand what you're doing?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "I'm not doing anything except being myself. If you have a problem with who I am, I have a problem with you kissing other men. I have a problem with you flirting with my friends. I have a problem with you posting photos of yourself draped all over Harvey and then acting like I'm the crazy one for being upset about it. It was a kiss on the cheek, at our own party. You're making it sound like what? Like you're having an affair?" The word hung between us like a blade. I felt my carefully constructed narrative wobble. "That's ridiculous," I said, but my voice sounded thin. "I would never... Harvey and I are friends, that's all." "Friends," Elliot repeated flatly. "Yes, friends. I'm sorry if you're too insecure to handle your wife having male friends, but that's your issue, not mine." Something shifted in Elliot's expression. A door closing, a decision being made. "You're right," he said quietly. "It is my issue. And I'm going to handle it." The next morning, I found a typed list on the kitchen table. Dates, times, locations, the anniversary party, the bar, a coffee shop I'd met Harvey at the week before, even a lunch at the restaurant near his gym that I'd forgotten about. At the bottom of the page, in small print, was the letterhead for Gale and Associates, Jacob's law firm. My hands shook as I read through the list. Everything was accurate, but presented in a way that made innocent interactions look calculated and secretive. The coffee meeting, which had been a chance encounter that turned into a friendly chat, was listed as private meeting, 2:33:45 p.m., no other parties present. The lunch was described as extended meal, subject observed, laughing and touching companion's hand repeatedly. "Elliot," I called, but there was no answer. His car was already gone from the driveway. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting. "We need to talk about this list. You're taking everything out of context." No response. At work, I could barely concentrate. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was Elliot, but it was just Marsha sending supportive texts and memes about haters gonna hate. When I got home that evening, Amelia was at Linda's house, apparently a last-minute arrangement. Elliot was in the kitchen, making dinner for one. "Where's Amelia?" I asked. "At my mother's. She's staying there tonight." "Why?" "Because we need to have a conversation, and I don't want her to hear it." I held up the list. "Is this your idea of a conversation? Making me sound like some kind of criminal?" "I'm documenting facts, Sophronia. Dates, times, witnesses, things that actually happened." "But you're twisting everything, making it sound sordid and planned, when it was just normal social interaction." "Normal?" Elliot set down his fork and looked at me directly. "Is it normal to meet another man for coffee and not mention it to your husband? Is it normal to have lunch with your husband's friend and spend the entire time touching him? Is it normal to kiss someone at your anniversary party and then post photos of it online like you're proud of it. Each question hit like a physical blow. You're making it sound worse than it was. Am I? Or am I just describing it accurately for the first time? I sank into a chair across from him. Elliot, please. You're my husband. You know me. You know I would never actually cheat on you. Do I know that? Yes, of course you do. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I used to think I did, but lately, I'm not sure I know you at all. That night, he slept in the guest room again. In the morning, I woke to find his side of the closet half empty, and Amelia's favorite stuffed animal, the one she never slept without, gone from her room. When I called Linda's house, she answered on the first ring. They're not available right now, she said in a voice like winter. Linda, this is ridiculous. I want to talk to my daughter. Amelia is fine. She's safe. That's what matters right now. Safe? Safe from what? From her own mother? But Linda had already hung up. I stood in my empty house, surrounded by the silence that had replaced my family, and for the first time, I began to understand that this wasn't just a rough patch or a misunderstanding. This was something much more serious, something that might not be fixable with explanations or apologies or time, something that felt like the beginning of the end. I found Harvey at his gym 3 days later, during what I knew was his usual training session. The familiar smell of rubber mats and disinfectant hit me as I walked through the glass doors, my heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. Harvey was spotting someone on the bench press, but I could see the moment he noticed me. His shoulders tensed, and he glanced toward the exit like he was calculating escape routes. We need to talk, I said when he finished with his client. Sophronia, I don't think... 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. He led me to a small office behind the front desk, closing the door behind us. The space was cramped, filled with protein powder samples and fitness magazines. Harvey perched on the edge of his desk, maintaining as much distance as possible in the small room. What did you tell him? I asked without preamble. Tell who? Don't play dumb, Harvey. Elliot. What did you say when he questioned you? Harvey's face flushed. He didn't question me. He just asked some things. What kind of things? About the party, about the times we've hung out. He wanted to know if we'd ever... Harvey trailed off, unable to meet my eyes. Ever what? Had sex? Had an affair? I felt my voice rising. And what did you tell him? The truth, that we're friends, that we've never done anything serious. Serious? The word hit me like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? Harvey shifted uncomfortably. Come on, Soph. You know there's been tension between us, chemistry, but we never acted on it, not really. Not really? I stared at him. Harvey, we've never done anything except talk and maybe flirt a little. That's it. The kissing was playful, friendly, the kind of thing people do at parties. And the touching, the way you look at me, the things you say when we're alone. I felt the ground shifting beneath me. I don't know what you think I said, but you told me Elliot was boring, that he didn't appreciate you. You said you wished you'd married someone more fun, more adventurous. Harvey's voice was quiet but steady. You said if you weren't married, things would be different between us. The words hung in the air like an accusation. I remembered saying some of those things, but they'd been casual comments, venting sessions, the kind of harmless complaints all married people made. I was just blowing off steam. Everyone complains about their spouse sometimes. Not like that, not while they're sitting close enough to kiss, not while they're touching your arm and looking at you like... Like what? Like you wanted me to do something about it. I felt panic rising in my chest. Harvey, you're taking everything out of context. Just like Elliot is. I was being friendly, that's all. Friendly, Harvey repeated, the same flat tone Elliot had used. Is that what you call it when you asked if I ever thought about what it would be like if we'd met before you got married? I had no memory of asking that question, but Harvey's certainty made me doubt myself. Had I said that? Had I crossed lines I didn't even remember crossing? Look, I said, trying to regain control of the conversation. Whatever I said, whatever you think happened, it doesn't matter now. What matters is that you're letting Elliot destroy my marriage over nothing, over some harmless flirting between friends. Harvey stood up, creating even more distance between us. Sophronia, I like you, I always have, but this isn't nothing, and I can't lie to Elliot about what's been going on. What's been going on? Nothing's been going on. Then why are you here? Why are you so upset if it was all just harmless fun? The question stopped me cold. Why was I here? Why did I care so much about what Harvey had told Elliot if I truly believed I'd done nothing wrong? Because, I said finally, because my husband is using this as an excuse to destroy our family. Because my daughter is staying at her grandmother's house instead of with her mother. Because everyone is acting like I'm some kind of monster when all I did was have friends. Harvey's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry about Amelia. I really am. But maybe you should think about why Elliot is so upset. Maybe there's more to this than you want to admit. There's nothing to admit. There's nothing to think about. You're all making this into something it isn't. But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. If there was really nothing wrong with my behavior, why did I feel so defensive? Why had I been so careful to hide some of my meetings with Harvey from Elliot? Why had I deleted certain text messages? I should go, Harvey said. My next client will be here soon. Harvey, wait. I grabbed his arm as he moved toward the door. Please don't let him ruin this. Don't let him turn you against me. For a moment, Harvey looked almost sad. Sophronia, nobody turned me against you. But I can't be in the middle of this anymore. I can't be the reason your marriage falls apart. You're not the reason. Yes, I am. We both are. And maybe it's time to stop pretending otherwise. He left me alone in the office, surrounded by the smell of protein powder and the sound of weights clanking in the main gym. Through the small window, I could see people working out, focused on their goals, improving themselves. I felt like I was falling apart. When I got home, the house was still empty. No Elliot, no Amelia, no sounds of family life. Just silence and the echo of my own footsteps. I tried calling Elliot again. Voicemail. I tried calling Linda. She hung up on me. I tried calling Jacob's office, thinking maybe I could explain my side of things. His secretary told me he was unavailable, and would I like to leave a message? Tell him his brother is making a huge mistake, I said. Tell him he's destroying a family over nothing. That evening, Marcia came over with takeout and wine, ready to commiserate. Harvey's being a total coward, she declared, settling onto my couch with a container of Thai food. He's probably been wanting to hook up with you for years, and now he's throwing you under the bus to save his own ass. I don't think that's what happened. Of course it is. Men are all the same. They love the attention and the flirting until there are consequences. Then suddenly they're innocent victims. I wanted to agree with her, wanted to fall back into the comfortable narrative where I was the wronged party. But Harvey's words kept echoing in my head. Maybe there's more to this than you want to admit. Marcia, I said slowly, do you think I did anything wrong? My sister looked at me like I'd asked if the sky was purple. Are you kidding? You talked to some guys. You were friendly at parties. You acted like a normal social person instead of some repressed housewife. If that's wrong, then every woman in America is guilty. But what if nothing? Elliot is being controlling and paranoid, and everyone else is just going along with it because they're jealous or scared or whatever. You did nothing wrong, Soph. Nothing. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But as I lay in bed that night, alone in the house that had once held my family, I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone else could see something I was refusing to acknowledge. Something that might cost me everything I'd thought was mine forever. The mediation session was held in a sterile conference room at Jacob's law firm. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in my most conservative outfit, a navy blue suit I'd bought for job interviews years ago. I wanted to look responsible, maternal, nothing like the party girl Elliot was apparently trying to paint me as. Jacob was already there, shuffling through a stack of papers that seemed impossibly thick for what should have been a simple misunderstanding. Elliot sat beside him, wearing the same blank expression he'd perfected over the past month. "Where's my lawyer?" I asked, taking the seat across from them. "You said you were representing yourself," the mediator, Mrs. Chen, replied. "We can reschedule if you've changed your mind." I had changed my mind, actually, but the lawyer I'd consulted had wanted a retainer I couldn't afford, and besides, I'd convinced myself this was all going to blow over once everyone calmed down and started thinking rationally. "No, it's fine. Let's just get this over with." Mrs. Chen opened her folder. "We're here to discuss temporary custody arrangements for Amelia Gale, age 8, and to address the divorce petition filed by Elliot Gale. Mrs. Gale, do you understand the allegations being made?" "I understand that my husband is trying to destroy our family because I have male friends," I said, looking directly at Elliot. "But I don't understand why we're in a lawyer's office instead of marriage counseling." Jacob cleared his throat. "Mrs. Gale, my client has documented evidence of adultery and inappropriate conduct that—" "Documented evidence?" I laughed, but it sounded forced even to me. "Of what? Talking to people? Being social?" "Of an ongoing emotional affair with Harvey Ralston," Jacob said calmly, "including secret meetings, inappropriate physical contact, and communications that crossed marital boundaries." "That's ridiculous. Harvey and I are friends. We've never—" Jacob slid a manila folder across the table. "These are printed copies of text messages between you and Mr. Ralston over the past 6 months." My hands shook as I opened the folder. The messages were all there, printed in stark black and white. Conversations I'd forgotten, late-night exchanges that had seemed harmless at the time. "Elliot's working late again. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a ghost. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who appreciates what he has. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd met first? All the time. Maybe in another life. Maybe in this one if things were different." Reading them now, in the sterile room with my husband's lawyer watching my reaction, they looked damning, intimate, like the conversations of two people planning something they shouldn't be planning. "These are taken out of context," I said weakly. "They don't mean what you think they mean." Jacob slid another folder across the table. "These are photographs taken at various locations over the past 3 months." The photos were worse than the texts. There I was at the coffee shop, leaning across the table toward Harvey, my hand covering his. At the restaurant, laughing at something he'd said while touching his arm. At the bar, standing close enough that we could have been mistaken for a couple. In every photo, I looked happy, radiant, more animated than I'd been at home in months. "The photographer was hired by your husband after the anniversary party," Jacob explained. "These images were taken in public places, completely legally." "You had me followed?" I turned to Elliot, finally getting a reaction. "You actually hired someone to spy on me?" "I hired someone to document the truth," Elliot said quietly. "Because I knew if it ever came to this, you'd deny everything." Mrs. Chen studied the photos with professional detachment. "Mrs. Gale, can you explain the nature of your relationship with Mr. Ralston?" "We're friends," I insisted. "We've been friends for years. These photos just show normal, friendly interaction." "Normal, friendly interaction," Jacob repeated. He pulled out another sheet of paper. "Is it normal for friends to meet secretly and not tell their spouses? Because according to your phone records, you and Mr. Ralston exchanged over 200 text messages in the month leading up to the anniversary party alone." 200 messages? That couldn't be right, but as I thought about it, the good morning texts, the funny memes, the complaints about work and marriage, the little conversations throughout the day, I realized it probably was right. "Texting isn't cheating," I said desperately. "No," Mrs. Chen agreed, "but the content of those texts, combined with the secret meetings and physical intimacy shown in these photographs, does suggest an inappropriate relationship. Physical intimacy. We never had sex. We never even kissed on the lips. The words hung in the air, and I realized how pathetic they sounded, like a teenager arguing that oral sex didn't count. Jacob opened another folder. Statements from witnesses, your anniversary party, charity dinners. Multiple people saw you being affectionate with Mr. Ralston. My stomach dropped. People are jealous, I said weakly. They want to see me fail. Mrs. Chen leaned forward. Mrs. Gale, do you believe your behavior with Mr. Ralston was appropriate for a married woman? The question froze me. Appropriate? I'd never asked myself that. I never meant for it to go too far, I said. He just made me feel good about myself, seen, interesting, worth something. And your husband didn't? I looked at Elliot for the first time in months. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. Elliot's a good man, I said quietly. But he's not expressive. He shows love through work, stability, responsibility, not by saying I'm beautiful or making me feel alive. So you sought that elsewhere, Mrs. Chen said. I didn't mean to, I whispered. It just happened. Harvey was charming. He noticed me. He made me feel young again. Not just a mom or someone's wife or a name on an office badge. Once I began, the truth poured out. I loved how he looked at me. I loved the texts, the attention, the way he always took my side. I loved feeling wanted. Even though you were married, Mrs. Chen said. Even though I was married. Elliot's voice broke the silence. Did you love him? The room blurred. Did I? Or did I just love what he reflected back at me? I don't know. Maybe. In a way. And were you planning to leave me for him? No, never. I wanted to feel special. You mattered to me, he said, voice trembling. You mattered to Amelia. We were your family. I know, I whispered. But at the time, it didn't feel like enough. Mrs. Chen closed her file. Given your admissions and the evidence, I'm recommending temporary primary custody for Mr. Gale. Supervised visitation for you. Supervised? I repeated, stunned. I'm not a danger to my daughter. You've admitted to deception and emotional neglect, she said gently. Until stability is proven. She's my baby. I stood, tears spilling. You can't take her from me. But I could see it in their faces. It was already decided. I destroyed my own case with my own honesty. Jacob slid a paper across the table. Restraining order for the family home. You'll need alternate housing. I stared at the form, the cold precision of the words that ended my life as I knew it. Where am I supposed to go? Jacob didn't look up. You should have thought about that before you betrayed your family. When I walked out of that room, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bright and merciless. My harmless flirting, my need to feel seen, my craving for validation, every small choice had built to this. I'd wanted attention, and I got it, just not the kind I'd imagined. The final hearing fell on a grey November morning. I sat alone at the defendant's table beside a lawyer who looked half asleep. Across from me, Elliot sat with Jacob, calm, resolute, done. Judge Morrison, sharp-eyed and tired of human messes, asked if I wished to contest the divorce or custody. My lawyer had warned me not to. Still, I asked to speak. I said I never meant for it to end like this, that my mistakes came from loneliness, not malice, that I loved my daughter and was trying to change. The words sounded rehearsed even to me. Elliot stood. His voice was steady but raw. He spoke of 10 years spent trying to make me happy, of lies, gaslighting, and how I'd made him doubt his sanity. She says she loves our daughter, he said, but love isn't enough if you'd risk your child's stability for attention. Then he asked the question I couldn't answer. How does a father explain that her mother chose another man over her family? The judge didn't hesitate. Primary custody to Elliot. Supervised visits for me. 2 hours, every other weekend. The gavel fell like a door closing forever. I watched Elliot shake hands with my father, while my own lawyer packed up without looking at me. Linda hugged him. My sister hadn't spoken to me since I admitted I'd developed feelings for Harvey. Even my father's handshake with Elliot felt like judgment carved in stone. Outside, the parking lot shimmered with cold light. I saw the car seat in the back of Elliot's car, my daughter's blanket folded neatly, waiting for a drive home I'd never share again. I thought about the visits, seeing Amelia in a sterile room while a stranger took notes, about the one-bedroom apartment with broken air conditioning and no laughter, about starting over at 34 with no husband, no home, no friends, no one to blame. And Harvey, the man I'd risked everything for, was gone. Vanished after his deposition, proving Elliot right all along. Charming, selfish, temporary. I'd traded a decade of love for a fantasy that couldn't survive daylight. My phone buzzed. A reminder from the visitation center. Saturday, 10 a.m. I sat in my car, watching Elliot drive away with the life I'd destroyed, finally seeing the truth I'd refused to face. I hadn't been misunderstood or unlucky. I'd been the architect of my own ruin. I'd chosen ego over family, validation over loyalty, desire over love. And now, all that remained was silence, the kind that fills the space after a door slams shut for good. That night, I drove to my empty apartment, where no one waited and no one called. The excitement I'd chased was gone, the attention I'd craved replaced by judgment and absence. It was exactly what I'd earned, and nothing like what I'd wanted. But it was mine. All of it. The consequence of every choice I'd made, every lie I'd told, every moment I'd mistaken destruction for freedom. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.